What up?
What up? What up? What up?
Yeah,
Let's see what's happening here. Just let people come into the chat here and into the call, and let me pull up comments. And this one's been a while in the making, right? Like a long time. So everybody knows Jeff. Everybody knows Eagle. You guys know who I am. And we have Doc with One Potato Revolution. He's behind this screen here. He's out in the sticks. He turns his video on and we lose him. So the data is important. And Doc, man, nice to have you here, bro. You know, I met Doc, online when I posted a Winogradzki column, and we're gonna learn what that is. And he reached out to me and was like, "I think you're the only dude I've seen post something or put something up like that." And I find out that there's someone like Doc out there, dude, that is just pushing the level of purple non-sulfur bacteria to the degree that I've been searching and digging, and we've all collectively, but I've gone down that deep rabbit hole. So Doc, man, welcome. And I look forward to doing a couple of these episodes because this is just far too much data to even drop in a 2-hour episode.
Thank you, Mo. Much love from the UK. So I'm sitting here in the Devon Hills. I'm in South Devon, which is near a place called Totnes. If anybody's heard of it, it's twinned with Narnia. So it's a very avant-garde area. And if you've ever heard of the Transition Town Network, that's Totnes is where it evolved. So I'm happy to reach across, and Mo, like you said, you were one of the few people that were rocking a Winogradzki column. One of the few people who've delved into the PNSB, and I'm hoping that probably for the next 10 years, like mycelium, we're now going to start looking at bacteria, and particularly PNSB because of how we're going to be able to use it in farming.
So you've been farming with it for quite some time, and it's another solid point. There's you're well experienced with this thing, and
it's I'm lucky in some respects because I chose the right location. So the land that I bought many years ago, having escaped the rat race, shall we say. So I'm a former trainer. I'm a former software engineer, and I was very lucky that I was able to travel the world and see many different farming systems. So my hobby has become my living, and that's also my passion. So PNSB for me was really from my background in aquaponics and hydroponics and bioponics, and so I found my way to PSB many years ago, but had to come full circle through KNF and other natural farming systems to actually bring it into a system that will translate worldwide, really.
That's a lot of traveling, Doc, and a lot of playing with different soils and a lot of just a whole lot of everything. Zockman, how close to Midhurst, West Sussex are you?
West Sussex it's a couple hours journey. I'm over in Sussex quite a bit. I work with hemp farms principally. One of the first hemp farms that I worked with is over in Sussex. So I'm not far, I'm not close, but it's close enough that I can get over there if I need to.
All right, so I want to dive in real quick because I know we want to hit this thing, and I want to put a couple things out. I definitely want to put this out. This is where, so one major thing about Doc that we share in common is that we're open source, right? This is, you can't hide something that can do what this thing is capable of doing, and especially monetize it. And, yes, whatever. I won't get into any of that. This is not going to be a recipe farming thing. I've been more than happy to give the recipe to many people, but we want to attack this data. so that you guys understand in the grow. And I'm going to say the flower industry is really the focus here. I'm going to use that word because I don't know how YouTube will actually, come after me if I don't. But you guys understand that industry is the one that pushes these things forward, and everyone should be growing this. Everyone should understand this. Doc, let's just roll it out. Let's just roll with it, guys. If you have questions, ask them. Right? We're gonna run this with questions, and let's see how much information we can get out. This is being recorded, so we'll be able to come over and over and over and watch it again. Even I've got a million questions, and this is gonna be a part one to probably a small series because I'm not done here either. So, my friend, let's let me know what you want me to put up, and let's roll with it.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, PNSB. I'll always refer to it as PNSB, simply because it's. Otherwise, I don't learn the Latin names because it all sounds like Star Wars names to me.
Rhodopseudomonas palustris specifically.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, from Dagobah.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where PNSB is something you're going to see in a label, and that's really the purpose of the systems or the system I teach is that we're going to move away from this renting fertility. So buying it in a bottle is great, but you only really need to buy it once. So like you say, Mo, we can provide cultures. The idea is that you're able to take it on and you're able to grow it yourself because it's that easy that there should be no reason why you need to come back to me for a second bottle. That said, there are some people who don't have the facilities to be able to grow it, and so therefore there's always going to be a commercial need for it. But if you are growing flowers, if you are growing apex plants, then you need to be growing this because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be effectively harvesting all of the lost sunlight. So we're growing PNSB using lights. Now, luckily enough, they also like a certain temperature. Now, anybody that's growing indoors would recognize light cycles, would recognize temperature. So you can and you should be growing this inside any grow tents. But at the same time, why are we growing this? Well, we're growing really because there's a number of different, I suppose, metabolic superpowers. So principally, we're looking at nitrogen fixation. So if you look at if you look at PNSB, within the system that I teach, the HBNF system, we're utilizing PNSB to fix atmospheric nitrogen. So let me let's see. Can you bring the slide up and let's see if we can. Here we go. So what we're looking at is PNSB principally is going to be eating carbon waste, and its superpower, if you like, is that nitrogen fixation, but it's also the 5-ALA. So, Mo, you know what 5-ALA is?
5-ALA is no, I don't. You know what? I forgot. It's like a protein. It's a plant hormone.
There you go. Exactly.
It's a plant hormone. It's a plant growing. So it's a PG or plant growth hormone, kind of like endothelioacetic acid, right? These it's creating these things, man, from eating waste. So go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly that. And you, again, the reason why we're talking is because you mentioned the acetic acid. So there's a number of different outputs depending on how you grow PNSB, but essentially those superpowers is the 5-ALA, it is the acetic acid, but we're also talking about phosphate and mineral solubilization. So PNSB is in the soil. A lot of minerals are in the soil. They're just locked up. So when you activate a large colony or you reawaken that which is in the soil, what you're going to also be able to do is tap into the phosphates and the minerals that are in the soil. So with PNSB, you're using it for a number of different functions, but it's got really superpowers. Another one of those is actually the toxins and heavy metal remediation. So when you have PNSB at the root zone, you have that protective film whereby the heavy metals are blocked before they even enter the root zone. So there's a lot going on.
So it has,
yeah.
Sorry, Doug. So PNSB has, off the top, at least 4 different detoxifying metabolic pathways, and I'm not going to jump 6 of them. There you go. So 6 detoxifying metabolic pathways. To simplify that, it has 6 different ways to detoxify heavy metals, and it detoxifies. Good.
Strictly speaking, it's got 6 different superpowers. With toxic metals, it actually it has 2 ways in which it'll encounter it. So the way in which it will deal with toxic metals is it'll either break it apart, so chemically destroy it, or it'll embody it. So this is where you've got the toxin and heavy metal remediation. You've got the urea and ammonia metabolization. You've got the mineralization or solubilization of the minerals and the phosphates. You've got the 5-ALA, and you've got the nitrogen fixing. So you've got all these different functions all within one microbe, but those functions will change depending on how you've grown it and the environment that it will exist. So if we look at how we would actually be growing, the way in which we'll actually be growing it will determine its metabolic pathway. By that I mean, depending on what you feed it, where you feed it, will depend on how it's going to work best. So, if somebody's been brought up eating fine foods and breathing fine air, and then you put them in a coal mine, they're not going to be that healthy. So they're going to have to adjust the way in which they work. So PNSB adjusts to how it works depending on its environment, but we can force that metabolic pathway depending on how we grow it, or indeed how we use it.
Can I ask a question, Doc?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question? So, like, if you're just doing it like this, just simple, because a lot of people in the audience are probably just culturing it like this, what are the best uses of this one?
Right. What you're doing there is you're growing it in a oxygen-free environment. So because of that, you're going to be forcing it through the nitrogen fixation pathway as such. So that is the best way, if you like, that you can utilize or grow and then utilize PNSB, because it's going to take the it means that when you're growing it in the absence of oxygen with certain food sources, it will take a metabolic pathway that will give it a superpower that's enhanced, if you like. So without oxygen, feeding it what you're using, which is like carbon matter, then it's going to force itself through the nitrogen fixation. It will also do all the other things, but that's where it's most powerful, and that's where, on large scale, that's what we need. So what we need is the nitrogen to not come through the Haber-Bosch process. We need it to come through at room temperature, which is what the PNSB is doing.
And so again, too, and I tend to like sit back and rewind things and simplify a little bit. Another master power this thing does is it's got 4 metabolic pathways to eat and do what it needs to do. So right now he's saying the nitrogen, right? This is a phototrophic. It takes sunlight and it eats that way. But if it's in the dark, it'll go into a dark cycle and now it doesn't have a mitochondria, but it will use those same pathways to act like the mitochondria to now start eating other things in order to create whatever it needs to create. So it's been best known as a Swiss Army knife of tools that it can use to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. So it's very hard to get across that you can use this for everything, because it sounds a little bit too whatever, but it's the truth. because what you're able to do is you're able to train this microbe to eat or act a certain way. And the pinnacle with that is where we're able to stress adapt the PNSB. And that's where we're able to change from the purple or the red to move to the black. And that's where we're then training the PNSB to hyperproduce melanin. And like humans, melanin is there to protect your DNA from UV. So there's many different ways in which you can cultivate this, and there's many different ways you can then stress adapt the microbe as well.
Yeah, so you're growing this thing in a bottle, and then depending on the direction you want to steer it, because under melanin, from what I understand it becomes even more of a detoxifier in the soil. Yes. And so now you're using what he calls the dark pearl, which is stuck with me, is where you now tell this microbe, we're going to stop growing now. We're going to focus on creating melanin, understanding the feed to do that and what you're serving it. And then one more thing real quick, Doc, because I'm not sure if so the cytophores, right? This is a question I get all the time. This also creates molecules that'll latch onto iron and break off phosphorus from that iron, making that phosphorus soluble. Yeah. Just iron, right? So that's kind of like I'm trying to throw the tools at you guys as they come. So that, you know, and again, I'm not sure if I just took us off track, Doc, but continue.
No, I mean, there's no going off track because you can always circle back. So the point that you've made there is very pertinent about iron, and having iron in the diet will also enable us to change what we feed the PNSB as well. So again, the function of iron within the bacteria determines what it can do to a certain extent. So the to force the black pearl, to force it to do exactly what you said, which was to move production from multiplication to defense, therefore creating this melanin armor. Well, that's where we would stress adapt it with high UV, plus also with salinity, so by adding sea salt. But we also need to be sure that there's some iron in there, so we would include in the reactor some volcanic rock dust as an example, because PNSB are able to bioweather minerals. So if there's iron present, then they will latch onto it and they will suck it in. But it's very easy to create your own iron acetate. But once you've created that, and again, you can do that on scale, you can then grow PNSB on scale. And most people I see are growing it in a 5-litre container. Well, we need to scale this up, so we grow in 1,000-litre containers, because it's just as easy to grow in 1,000 litres as it is in 5 litres. But that's where the how you grow it will change. So you're reliant on a clear plastic bottle to allow sunlight. The PNSB effectively eat the sunlight, or use the sunlight for their energy, as a plant would do. But we spoke about it the other evening, is we're talking about electrons, and we're talking about how do you feed PNSB, and you don't necessarily have to actually feed them organic matter, but they love it. So we try and use PNSB to eat the organic waste. But equally so, if we're training PNSB, we can put them on a separate diet as well.
And so kind of like, and just to rewind a little bit again, so the bioreactor is the bottle. It took me a long time to even understand what that meant, right? The bioreactor is the bottle. So, you know, the same way, and I'm going to take everyone to what they can relate to, is your lactic acid bacteria, your beneficial microorganisms. What you put in that bioreactor with them will begin to train them to that material.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
You're because they are so powerful, because they have effectively 4 different ways in which they metabolize or they grow or they react. You're able to train them. So, and you're training them because they're able to handle that stress. So if you look at any of the instructions, when you're growing PNSB in a clear bioreactor, such as on Jeff's shoulder there, you're exposing it to sunlight, you're forcing it into a metabolic pathway because there is no oxygen. But if there is oxygen, they can cope with it. So when we use PNSB to make, say, a slug soup, there's going to be oxygen, but they're able to adapt to that. But when we're growing it to grow on scale, when we're growing it to primarily get nitrogen fixation, or indeed nitrogen, that's where we would be growing on the windowsill, or rather in sunlight, no oxygen, with the diet. Now, if we use PNSB in an oxygen-rich environment, they simply change their metabolic pathway to adapt.
And here's a perfect example of a question. I mean, a great question for what we're talking on here. And this is, he's been using it fermenting on your seaweed. Somebody's following you, right? Cheryl C. This is what he's doing now. He's using PNSB to specifically take from seaweed what he's wanting.
Yeah, because the seaweed is the food source, but I'm interested in the output. So rather like kombucha, you'll feed it tea and sugar, but what you're interested in is the probiotics. So when you are using PNSB in an oxygen-free environment, not only are they replicating and forging the nitrogen fixation ability, but they're also synthesizing the minerals. They're also what's the word? They're remediating the heavy metals, because in seaweed, everything that goes out, that flushes out into the ocean, gets sucked into seaweed. So you have to be very careful with bringing seaweed back into the land, because there's going to be a lot of heavy metals in there. Well, this is where, in that environment, we're able to train PNSB to deal with that, and also to lock in those heavy metals. So back to the point, why am I using seaweed? Is because I have seaweed. It's dried seaweed rather than wet seaweed, so therefore I have to process it differently. And when I process it, I can do the same thing with EM. I can do the same thing with lactic acid bacteria, but the output from that isn't as strong as having the 6 superpowers come through in the extraction or in the final end product.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, what to prove? I mean, not that I need to prove that point, but when you put this in the consortium with lactic acid bacteria, it's fixing nitrogen 3 times as much. They start producing more. They start responding more. And this thing is dynamic enough to control that environment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again with PNSB, the primary route should be nitrogen fixation. So therefore, growing it at scale in an oxygen-free environment, utilizing the sun. That's something that we need to have on a farm scale, because how nitrogen gets to a farm is retarded. The process that is used actually make nitrogen, because we're swimming in atmospheric nitrogen, but that triple covalent bond can't be broken. So using the Haber-Bosch process, all of this fossil fuels and all of this higher atmospheric pressure to break apart that bond to get nitrogen, when this microbe does it at room temperature in the soil, and it's compound. So as soon as it's in the soil, it's replicating all the time. You can see that because you can look at a bottle and you can see the exponential growth of this bacteria when it has the right environment. And again, if you're into the rhizophagy, if you understand that, then every plant is an apex predator. And when they drag in these purple non-sulfur bacteria, and when they do what they do, they're creating zombies of these PNSB, and we can load up the soil with trillions.
And that's because it's an endophytic microbe. And for those that understand, that the plant absorbs microbes, Dr. James White's done a lot of work on that. We did a video over on skunks about that and how they get pulled into the roots, and it goes to work there as well. It's a workhorse, and it's just constantly working. This thing does not sleep. When you're sleeping, when I'm sleeping, this thing's in my garden working, and I find peace in that, and
yeah. Well, again, when you look at how you're growing it, when you're growing it during the daylight, you can understand that it's actually drawing its energy from the sun, same as yourself or Superman. But at nighttime, we can continue that process because nighttime is irrelevant to them. It's have they got the magnetic power in the reactor. So this is where including paramagnetic minerals that you find in volcanic dust or basalt will also power the engine through the night as well.
And it'll use these things too. Like the we were talking about the carbon the other night, and how I picture it I imagine it as a backpack. I'm not going to get lost here. First of all, when I understood finally that you can train microbes, I think, that should be a big takeaway right now, that you can train microbes. And, this is one guy that started schooling me up on melatonin. I'm telling you, you can train them. And when I understood that was just kind of like, all kinds of doors opened up. And then now then you start training them just like an IMO and IPMO. All of a sudden, I see Doc feeding PNSB slugs.
Yeah.
It's training them, right?
Well, yes and no. I'm utilizing them for a number of different mechanisms, because I'm putting them into an environment whereby I'm using them primarily. So when we make a slug soup, this is where what we're doing is we're harvesting the stolen nitrogen. So we're grabbing those little buggers who are slithering around over your plants. We're putting them into a solution of soap. That's the instant kill. We're adding a little bit of IMO in there and PNSB. Now, PNSB and IMO are apex decomposers. So this is what we're looking to do, is we're looking to rapidly decompose the slug or the snail, but in doing so, we also culture an environment which extracts the gut microbe. So that includes the predatory nematodes that already exist within a slug. So again, we're using the PNSB and we are training the PNSB, but we're primarily using it to control or eat the stink, if you like. Because if you've ever made a JLF, a Jadam liquid fertilizer, and there's a line in his book which is, it smells like crap, but I'm not interested in the smell, I'm interested in the nutrient. Well, that's a hard sell when you're trying to give that to a farmer. So that's where we use PNSB to not only get rid of that smell, so that it's not offensive, but we also understand that we get rid of the smell because the smell is escaping ammonia, and this is where the PNSB eat that. So again, we're utilizing the PNSB and feeding them at the same time. But when we feed PNSB, it's the same as if you're feeding your worms. So a worm is, again, it's just a vermi reactor. It's another way in which we can access PNSB. And we can also use the worm gut to ferment PNSB, but also we're training the worm's gut like we do the PNSB, because we're actually training the PNSB that's in the worm's gut. And that's where, if you feed PNSB in a bottle, add some frass in there, or add some oyster shell, or seashell, crustaceans, that extra chitin, that diet, they will ingest and they will use, because it's food, and they will adjust their metabolism to hyperproduce chitinase. So this is where we get back to, what are you training the microbes? Well, we're training them using a specific diet, and phosphorus is another one. And again, anything that you're looking to hyperproduce the bioavailable output, you put through PNSB, seaweed,
and
etc.
Yeah, you're training them. And a side note that I have up here is the heavy metals PNSB that we know of: cadmium, lead, arsenic, copper, zinc, mercury, chromium. This is what it has been known to handle these 6 different ways, whether it's absorbing it, whether it's using a cysteine protein to turn it into a rock, whether it's attaching it like Spider-Man shooting a web and a I'm sorry, I go crazy, but shooting a web at a villain and sticking them to the wall. It literally will create glues and stick these things to its outer cell walls.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned arsenic. Now, with arsenic, what it will do, it will break it apart and turn it into arsenite. So, but there's some things that PNSB will do. They will either chemically smash it, break it apart, or they will lock it within their own cell bodies. And that's principally what they're going to be doing, is they're going to be locking it into their cell, their cells themselves. And again, you can force that phenotype, if you like, of PNSB, which is, the black pearl is just a phenotype. It's just expressing itself. It's expressing its genetics in a certain way, the same as I can either burn or tan in the sunlight, depending on my genetics. So it's the same with the PNSB. So yeah, you can't underestimate what you can do with PNSB. And when it comes to bioremediation, there's not that much which kind of parallels with it. But again, when you utilize it with hyperaccumulators like willow or hemp, it's very easy to be able to bioremediate large tracts of land within like 3 to 5 years, because you're just extracting all of the toxic chemicals from years back, and you're either embodying it in the cell of the microbe, or you're going to be extracting it through the cells of a plant.
And then the ability for EPS, glues, right, and biofilm, and then as Jeremy so eloquently puts it here, how I read it, electrons, energy, right? This is what this thing does. And my early, because I'm early into this whole regenerative thing and growing in plants and soil, I was taught early by people like this, and it's all about energy and carbon and energy. It's all energy. Everything we do is for energy. Mm-hmm. So you're going to a microbe that is taking sunlight, right? And now it's what is it? Bacteria chlorophyll. It's not the same chlorophyll you'll find in plants, but
yes,
it's photosynthesized.
Yeah. Again, you've hit on an interesting point. What we're looking at is a representation of how light energy is utilized. So the reason why we're looking at purple non-sulfur as purple is because of how they utilize not chlorophyll, but bacteria chlorophyll. But the great thing is that they also produce the precursor to chlorophyll, which they can transfer to plants. But the PNSB exist in a zone whereby there is only the infrared light. So sunlight hitting your plants reflects back as green. The energy that goes through is utilized by the PNSB. The deeper bacteria is your GNSB, which harvest a different spectrum of light that PNSB don't. So every time you're looking at a Winogradzki column, you're looking at how light energy is utilized. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Right.
It's kind of like when you're swimming in the ocean. You go 5 feet or 10 feet down, you lose your reds or your yellows and your green until just finally you're in the depths of everything and it's all blue. You lose light as you go down. PNSB in soil, if I'm remembering this right, I'm truly going to recall this. It's reading, well, I learned from, Jay here. It's reading, it's able to pick up that 800 plus nanometer, which allows it to collect light in that lower level of muck that it loves to hang out in and still be able to photosynthesize and create energy. And if anybody saw the episode on Yellow Skunk Farm where after the crash, I sent him PNSB and he put PNSB in that one little spot and algae started growing there. PNSB is smart enough to recognize there's no nitrogen in this system. Everything got shot. I'm going to start fixing nitrogen right here, and this is why you started seeing algae there first. It's my theory here.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, can I bring up a different slide here?
Oh, yeah. Just let me remove this one. This one here?
Yeah, please.
Okay, good.
So this is where the Winogradzki column is, the lost art of farming. Because Winogradzki column is the educational tool to describe the way in which microbes create the right environment depending on the resources that are available. So if we look at a Winogradzki column, if we're to build one for educational purposes, then what we're going to be doing is starting the bottom layer with mud where we're going to feed the carbon and the sulfur. What that's going to do is going to trigger a chain reaction, which in turn will create a barter system. So the food and the waste from each level is the food or the waste that fires up the next level. So as you see a Winogradzki column stratify, you see those colors. That's based on the food sources, the level of oxygen, the level of light, and as each layer stratifies out, depending on what food source is available, they will create the environment, because all those microbes exist in the mud, they're just dormant. So what we're able to do is look at Winogradzki column, use it as an educational tool, because it shows this is how a soil ecosystem works. This is the barter system. This is the kernel of the biological operating system. Nothing's going to change. The oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle, everything that naturally happens will happen in that bottle. So, but we can also use the Winogradzki column to culture a specific level. And again, once you understand the food sources and the resources that are required for each layer, that's where we can target the PNSB, because we know how to feed them. We know what their primary food source is. We want to know what their, we know what their electron donor is. That's what we're looking to do, is to feed those electrons to that specific layer. So you can manipulate a microcosm, or you can create this mini ecosystem, but you can also adapt that to be able to actually target certain levels. So you can target the level where PNSB is, or if like over in the UK here, we have very low lights. And we would encourage the GNSB because during the autumn, we have less light, and PNSB won't be able to operate as efficiently as GNSB in the lower light spectrums. So how you feed the column will determine how quickly that each layer will be progressed, and it will always start at the bottom and work its way up. But we can also intercede, if you like. And we had this conversation the other night, and you mentioned that, and this is what prompted me to get in contact with you, Mo, was the fact that you were building winter grassy column, and you cleverly used worm castings. And what that did was generated a thick band of that purple that was far in excess of the black band, if you like, because the food source that you're providing and the microbial life that was already in that worm casting exponentially grew that PNSB layer, if you like.
So I have the video on my Instagram and everywhere, and I'll repost it in the share. But what we did at the garden was take a bottle, a container, and it should have even been taller, but I stacked it with worm castings to the top and then closed the lid, gave it just the right moisture, and it's a lot of moisture. And I just set it off in indirect sunlight. And it was about 5 months later. That's without feeding it. So he just explained that you're going to feed the lower levels, right? Maybe mix an egg up in that lower level of your jar of food, not the whole egg, just a little bit. You understand what we're feeding here, right? We're feeding these microbes that are. I'm going to bring this down for a second. We're actually looking at them right there. That's PNSB in a nutshell. That's billions of them, right? And that's me with the 400 objective. I can go in with 1,000 and really get a look at these guys. So I filled the jar with worm castings, basically turned it into mud. You can go to a pond, fill a jar, set it and forget it. Apparently they teach you this in high school biology. I don't know.
Yeah,
they don't.
I missed out. I must have skipped that day.
Yeah, I did. Now, what you end up with is a band, as he's explaining, a color gradient, and each band is a different bacterium. And right dead smack in the middle, you're going to find Rhodopseudomonas palustris, right? PNSB, GNSB. I don't know why I have a hard time remembering the name of that. It is. What is GNSB, Doc?
Green non-sulfur.
Green. Jesus Christ, Jack. Green. Right.
Pretty simple.
Bro, if it's not complicated, I don't remember anymore.
Right.
So this is what's happening in that column, amongst way other things that'll come later. So there's going to be your culture, and I learned that later. So I got mine originally the hard way, and I got my indigenous culture. Doc, go to his Instagram. Go to his Patreon. He's got a free Patreon. All you got to do is put your email because it's required. Let me put that banner up. But he's got all this data on there. He's got all this information on there. And I'm trying to do a better job of doing it on my YouTube channel because I go nuts on everything, right? I'm just like a kid in the candy store, and this is obviously experience dialed in. But this is the power of this this microbe that has blown and has captured me and taken me. And just awed me, right? And here we are.
If we can move to the next.
The next one. Okay, I see you moving it. Yep, gotcha.
Yeah. So this is really where, for myself, because I'm in the UK, I would be growing PNSB simply because that has the most value. When I say grow PNSB, I'll be growing it as Jeff showed us in the bottle, or we do it on scale, so we do it in IBCs. We have to adapt those IBCs slightly, but what you can also do, going back to the training, you can train them to excrete certain outputs or hyper excrete. So like with chitin, but you can also stress adapt them. And this is where I am at the moment, we've got a heat wave. Now that's something that over the last few years has kind of skipped a few years, but we're now looking at this is going to be an annual thing. So what I'm doing is I'm stress adapting the PNSB that I have to be able to survive in a drought, or make my crops, my soil drought tolerant. And that's where we would implement the Black Pearl protocol, which is where we're forcing the PNSB through high exposure to UV and expressing itself with a certain diet. And what that's going to do is going to produce the melanin, or hyper produce the melanin. So it's a very simple recipe, but what we're doing is that we're applying, as you can see there, like with the use of vinegar, a redox stress.
Let me interfere real quick, Doc, please, because I'm seeing this question about this. Well, the veganic recipe. Here's part of it. His Patreon has this stuff there with these recipes. Right? This is just a matter of going and looking, and I could sit here and start telling you that we're going to have to oxygenate and bubble this and then cook it in it. It's there. It's available. This is the information that's not. And I will get to we could talk recipes on the next one all day long. And it's a matter of what you go and start getting your hands on and trying it. Go get that potato, boil it, feed it in a rook, have it digested, get your hands on it. For the veganics, you can do it with a potato. He's on Instagram, YouTube, Patreon. It's all free. It's all open source. It's all there. And I will put that banner back up.
So what I'm showing with this is not necessarily here as a recipe, because the system I teach is very much biome specific. So I would utilize and always add at the top of the list hemp. So that's where I would be using that, but it's there for a reason. It's there because it's there for the complex nitrogen. It's not there because that is the recipe. It's the element that I'm interested in, and that's where the natural farming, it's not recipe farming. You should be adapting to your own local biome. You should be able to culture these microbes not from a bottle from a shop, from your stream, from the pond, from the rain. You can dig a hole in the ground, let it rain, and collect your PNSB from that puddle. It exists everywhere. You're going to utilize its ability to change metabolic pathway so that you can adapt. So for myself, I would be using the Black Pearl protocol because we are experiencing UV stress and temperature. Whereas because over in Florida, you've got a different soil to my heavy clay soils, you've got a different biology when it comes to you have sand, so the problem with sand is really resolved with the Black Pearl, because what you're doing there is you're creating that CEC that you just don't have, and you're able to create the biofilms, and that's a very important thing is the biofilms. Because,
and I'm always after biofilm, Doc. They think for a while they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm building biology and stressing it is what I learned here. Stress it out. That's what happens on your kombucha. The top of your kombucha, you know that, what is that thing called that grows on the kombucha? The SCOBY is a stress mechanism that is there to protect itself from oxygen going into all this redox and energy and electrons and oxygen stealing electrons. I mean, so that is a biofilm. So if I can mimic something like that in my sand, that film now is a glue that's holding things together.
Yes.
Something else I understood, right? So I take that even further when I go create the Black Pearl and start stressing my PNSB to now even force even more biofilm and start feeding that to my sand as well. And now I'm sending in not only a strong biofilm, but a detoxifier and everything else we're talking about here.
Yeah. So point number 3 there is that you're creating the EPS, and that's the biological glues that you need to hold the sand particles together and turn them into magnets for humus and nutrients. So the way in which I would encourage people to start to use PNSB is to start at a low level, as in 5 litres. Everyone can get a hold of a 5 litre plastic bottle. Once you then build a level or a stock level as such, once you generate, it's like a sourdough starter. You've got to keep stocking it up, but you can also multiply it exponentially as well. Once you have that bulk, that's when you can then start to play around with how you stress adapt or how you would use it for ferments. So PNSB, for example, is the next step after Bokashi. So there's a lot of ways in which you can use PNSB, but I'm going to move on to the next what's it called now? The next slide. Yeah.
Okay, so let me take this one down, put this one up. That one there?
Yeah. So what are we looking at? Time at? Right. Okay. Let's get this in within the hour.
Don't worry about time.
So when we look at PNSB, we can't ignore the fact that to really utilize, we need to do it in bulk. And to do it in bulk, if we're actually wanting to produce PNSB, then Jeff demonstrated there the fact that he has to wake up every day, have a little chant, and give it a wiggle so that you have that PNSB. I've seen the webcam, so you see that PNSB. It's in a planktonic form, so it has to have that agitation, and that's something that if you're dealing with thousands of hectares of land, then that's something that is realistically kind of impossible. So that's where we've gone down the route of how do we grow PNSB at such volume without the problems that we have at the moment, which is we have to pick up 5 litre bottles, or once you get to 200 litre barrels, you still got to you mechanically got to move that. So what we can do with PNSB, the point I'm trying to get to, is that we can feed it carbon sources, but we can also feed it electricity. So this goes back to the point about electrons. So we bypass the whole process by actually feeding PNSB pure electrons. So this is microbial electrosynthesis, MES. So this is where, if we're growing PNSB as we do in a IBC, which is the standard volumetrics for transportation of liquid. So an IBC is 1,000 litres. We can utilise that as a bioreactor. Now, if you look at a small bioreactor, as in a 5 litre, you'll notice that after a while it's going to become very thick, and that thickness, if you put a light behind it, you shouldn't be able to see the light. Well, if you're not seeing the light, yep, there you go. So are the microbes in the center seeing the light? That's how they get their energy. So as you grow the microbes, they're going to multiply. They're also going to crowd each other out so that the light is not so accessible. So this is where we have to bypass the whole access to light, because what they're doing in sunlight is harvesting the electrons. So we go straight to the source and we plug it into the into a solar panel. So we're able to grow the PNSB. Let me find one. We're able to actually grow the PNSB utilizing electricity. So solar panel plugged into a what's the word? Anode, cathode,
Cathode, anode.
Cathodes and anodes.
Is it both? Is it both or just one? It's both. Cathode and anode.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a mud sled. Okay.
Yes. Everyone's done simple electrolysis. Yep, where you connect a power source to a cathode and anode, put it into water, and it bubbles. Yeah, I
don't think so.
You've never done that. You've never done.
I mean,
chemistry.
I did it, but I did it maybe 3 years ago. I didn't do it in high school or anything. Never dabbled. They don't teach that stuff here.
You would have done it as a young child. Everyone's done it as a young child, but how that relates to farming is it has never been put together. So we're putting that together. So what you're doing is you're breaking apart the water molecule and you're creating hydrogen. You with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Electrolysis.
Right. So again, coming back to PNSB and its ability to not only produce hydrogen, but also to eat hydrogen. So what we're going to be doing is feeding hydrogen directly, because the PNSB is so powerful that they have another way of growing without being in sunlight, without eating carbon material. And this is and this is where I'm going to struggle on the Latin of this. But the way in which the metabolic pathway that they utilize to create their mass is directly from pure electrons from attaching to a conductive surface.
So
you with me? Have I lost anyone? How this slide's going through? Here we go. So what we're able to do is grow the PNSB, and depending on the voltage that we use, hang on, let's go back. Depending on the voltage that we use will determine how they're actually grown. So we have a mode A and a mode B, and what that means is that we're able to grow PNSB in large liquid volumes without the issue of light penetration, without having to feed it carbon food sources, fish, egg, blah, blah, blah.
I have a question, Doc.
Yeah.
So if you're in like a clear IBC tote and you're applying this method, would the sunlight then be hindering your growth since you're trying to grow using electricity? No.
Okay. It's redundant though. It's kind of redundant.
Yeah, it's going to choose the path of least resistance, so it's going to choose electrons.
Yeah, it's going to take the electrons from the easiest available source.
It's not going to spend its energy to create it if it's there.
No. Yeah,
like a buffet.
Yes, it's in direct contact with it, and again, depending on the voltage, it will determine. And again, depending on what you're trying to create. So, if you're trying to create bioplastics, then you'll use mode A, and this is where the different protocols mean that what we're able to do is grow PNSB without sunlight, and that means we can use black IBCs and they can be set in warehouse. So most farmers have big barns with a roof full of solar panels, and they put that either into their farm and they're able to utilize it, or they sell it back to the grid and they get pennies on the pound. Those solar panels can be used to grow PNSB indoors. So that's where we're at the moment with our volumes. We're able to grow in thousands of liters, and we only need a solar panel.
And you're growing the Black Pearl. You're growing the melanin rich PNSB.
This method I utilize for both. So okay. I can stress adapt the PNSB, and that again is dependent on what I put into the reactor, into the water as such. So I can stress adapt them, but for me, growing at scale for nitrogen fixation is the target. So that's where, and also I have the type of soil where the Black Pearl isn't my priority. Now, if we continue having the same weather that we've had this summer, then I will have to generate more black pearl. But for me, for my clay soils, that's where I would be utilizing the nitrogen fixation. For yourselves over in Florida, you would be best to grow the black pearl because you're looking for the EPS. You're looking for that
the biofilm.
The biofilm, exactly that. Yeah.
And I'm getting it now by well, not with the PNSB I have anyway, but I'm stressing labs, I'm stressing Pseudomonas, I'm stressing lactic acid bacterias. I'm actually forcing a release of autoinducers, which are the signals, the hormones that trigger EPS in those microbes. And so yes. I'm able, and I'm doing it oxidatively. So I'm in a high oxygen level that I'm doing this in, and 6 hours in, the microscope shows me an entire culture of biofilm and fungus. So yeah. I'll use that in my sands and in my compost, knowing that in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to want to plant something there or maybe start to grow there. I'm going to start inoculating and then bring in the beneficial microorganisms after the stress and the mass execution of these microbes to open their cells up, and then bring in the beneficials that are now going to read those signals and start, and start doing this. I came up with that myself, and it works.
That's good.
I know, it's another rabbit hole. It's another video. But then I do chase it with Purple Non-Sulfur Bacteria, knowing what they're going to do, right? So the and the black pearl, there's a compound that triggers or gives it the tool to start creating melanin.
Yeah. I mean, the point is that we're able to biologically train, because the way I look at soil, it's a operating system. The kernel is the same wherever you are: nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, water cycle. But the GUI, your soils are different, and that's where you need to develop protocols to work with your biome effectively. So where I would be utilizing potatoes is because there ain't no rice grown in Devon. So why on earth would a natural farmer want to import rice for a potato-based soil culture?
Right.
So
yeah.
that's where I've adjusted my practices, because I don't have the temperature or the biology that KNF prescribes to. So this is where I have to adapt, and PNSB doesn't exist in the KNF methodology as such. So I've again had to adapt my system to integrate it. And luckily enough, we can even feed the PNSB with potato. So I'm all about the potato.
And the potato, and just to set people in that direction, is going to be having it digested or boiling it and using microbes to process it. Just like when I make a medium, right? So the egg, let's start with the simplest out there. Now, it's a simple Google search: egg, MSG, and fish sauce. Base foundation there. I learned just through experience in 2 years of just religiously doing this, that sometimes I got busy, I made the medium and I left, and then a day or two later I forgot about it and I saw it swelling up, so it started fermenting. And I thought, well, it smells like a porta potty or baby diapers, okay? But when I gassed that off, I said, let me put the culture in there anyway. And 2 weeks later, I was looking like Jeff there. Jeff is about, what are you, in a week already with those, week and a half?
I think, yeah.
I mean, he just inoculated those.
Long, but I did, we talked about this the other night, but I did do a
so
bigger,
could yucca be used? Farmer Cheryl, I would say when you understand what the egg is, and you need to replace the egg, then you find things that have the same properties as the egg, right? Like a fish amino acid. I made a purple non-sulfur bacteria with just a fish amino acid. I didn't even add it to the. It lives in the gut of the fish. It lives in the gut of the worm. So going back to the Winogradsky column, I didn't put any feed in that. It just shows up, right? Because that's nutrient rich anyway. If you go take pond muck, there is feed in there. Yeah, so that was a week ago.
10 days. Yeah, August 2nd.
Yeah. It's not a matter of build it, they will come. They're already there. So you just got to create the right environment. And that's where the Winogradsky shows you. Create the right environment, and it will express itself with every level. And therefore, it shows you that you don't need to be adding anything to your soils. You like in terms of nutrients, you need to be adding things to your soil in terms of biology, because that will kickstart the process. So if you're able to produce PNSB on a massive scale, then you're effectively waking up the soil stomach.
And you're gonna fail. Go figure. Same medium, same day, same culture, same everything. This one took, this one didn't. You're never gonna hit it 100%. Now you can get damn close, but most importantly, this is gonna be a matter of trial and error. The same way I never forget when I first made labs. Oh my God, I was freaking out. And okay, and whoa, and whoa, I did it wrong. And now it's just eyes closed, bang, bang, bang. I walk away, and now I'm like, why didn't that take?
Yeah,
because you start understanding this.
If you look at again the Winogradsky column, color is data. So looking at those two different cultures, you can immediately tell what the reason was. So it is your canary in the coal mine, if you like. So you're able to see through color, like a plant expresses color. It's either dull, it's a bright green, or the fruits are pale, whatever it may be. And that's the same with the microbes, that you're able to culture them and they express themselves with color. And it's very easy to be able to also force them to express that color more so. So if you're making a fish MSG egg mix, you really need to include some Epsom salts in there, magnesium, because it's the central cofactor, if you like, for production of chlorophyll.
It's all about having the right nutrients, the right foundation building blocks, right? As humans and as most creatures on Earth, we're all made of the same relative elements. Good. Yeah.
The thing I was trying to get across was that when you are feeding the culture, you are able to how can I put this? You can select, if you like. So that egg, fish source, and MSG is also a food source for GNSB. So again, if you're feeding that source, then the Epsom salts won't produce the purple, so therefore the purple won't have the more energy. How am I explaining this right? If there's the right food, if you're wild capturing just some water from a lake or from a pond, then depending on what you feed it will force the expression of the strongest in there. So you want to aim for PNSB, but you can also achieve GNSB. And that's where people look and say, well, that's a failure because it's not purple. But if you look at Winogradsky column, it says, no, what you've captured is something else. You've captured another layer in that column.
Another ecological niche, yeah.
And it's still beneficial. Yeah. And then I also think about like PNSB and my visual, everything I do is visual. I think of the Winogradsky column and I take a slice of earth and I apply it to the earth, right? And this is the function of PNSB. And where it's sitting in the soil is where it's functioning and what it's doing, but has the ability to live and manage in that in that, in all of that, right? It is.
Yeah. What you're talking about is the stratification, and what you're talking about is the anoxic zone, the anaerobic photic zone, and the aerobic zone. So depending on which level or zone will depend on what's actually going to be appearing there. So in the aerobic zone, you're going to get the algae and the cyanobacteria. Well, they're not a failure, they're a resource. You just have to deploy them in a different way than PNSB. So same with the sulfur oxidizing bacteria, the SOB, which is going to be on the top layer. When you're looking at the sort of like the photic zone, like the middle layer, that's where you're looking at the purple sulfur bacteria, the green sulfur bacteria, and the purple non-sulfur bacteria. So you can collect from all these different layers. You just don't want to collect from the bottom layer, which is the sulfate reducing bacteria and the organic like acid fermenters. But you do if you want to kickstart a septic system.
Right.
So, you know, color is data. It's just how you're going to utilize that microbe. So you don't want to be using the bottom layer for your plants because that's death. Whereas if you want to start that the decomposition in a septic system, then you would produce the bottom layer, the sulfate reducing bacteria. So it's all about stratification, really.
Colors data, and PNSB is going to tell you what it's doing. The minute you see those colors changing, look, you know, Jeff's like, look at it, right? It's exciting, and it's exciting to have, and it's exciting to share, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is going to happen here is that, and I know I'm going to probably, I hope I get bombarded with this, is that anybody who emails me, is my email on that list? If you want to pay for shipping in the bottle, I'm going to send you a free culture with instructions, base instructions. I think that you should. I think it would be best to understand what you're growing, do a little research, and understand what you're growing, so that you can adjust accordingly. As he's saying, just like he uses hemp, we're not allowed to grow hemp here. I don't know if you can grow that like in places where you can grow cannabis, but you know, the regulation here is stupid, and I gotta find, you know, I find my local inputs that I make, and I do that with all of my biology. So it's just something that with the hopes that, listen, I'll give it to you, and I know for sure that what Jeff's growing there, his neighbor's gonna have it, and then he's gonna show his neighbor how to grow it, and then that neighbor's gonna have it, because there is this there's this $150 a gallon price tag out there that has always kind of, you know, $150, and you know, it's a matter of having the culture. But and go catch yours though, right? This is kind of like, I would say, use my culture. You're still trying, but you're still trying, right? And now that there's, you know, you have a better understanding that of how to even catch your own, and when you get that Gretzky column and you see that purple band, you have the feed ready so that you go take out everything above it and just take and scoop that purple out, and you know that you're putting it in there. Don't overfeed it. That was something else that I learned, you know, and it took me a little bit to understand. I failed a lot, guys. I mean, I was, you know, I had fun doing it though, but you know, it can be exhausting, and it can be discouraging. But you know, I pushed through it, and once I caught it, I've never gone without it. And now I got it, and now I can't get rid of it. It comes everywhere. It's in everything that I do. It comes from cultures now. Fish. Look, I was at Gardens and Glass. Rick had a bokashi bottle sitting outside for bokashi leachate that had been sitting out there for God knows how long, and it starts turning red. I'm like, dude, look at it. This is PNSB turning red in this bottle, culture from a bokashi bottle, which means it survived the pickling, it survived the 4 pH, got through all of that, found something in there that it was going to strengthen itself. And the minute Rick threw that bottle outside in one of the garden beds, in a couple weeks, it turned red, because then it switched over to sunlight. I was like, oh, now we're plugged in, right? Oh, now we can rock. I survived the dark cycle here, and it's go time. And boom, there it is. You know, my mom the other day came over here with 2 ounces of some liquid, and she's like, "Son, I think I caught that red shit." You know, and it's like, man, I don't know about that. I put it under the scope, and there it is, and it's a whole different culture than what I have. And guess where she got that from? I gave her a bottle of sea minerals, and it was such a small bottle. I said, only use a dash, and a couple months later, she comes back with 2 ounces of it sitting in the light, and there it is. So, you know, my email is here, and I'll send you the culture if you're going to pay for shipping and bottle and extend it. You know, you see people on Instagram. I'm already doing it. You know, it's not a thing. And then and after that, if you want to buy it, cool. You know, I know some people don't have time for stuff. I buy things I don't have time for. I don't even know if I have my email up here, but you guys know the email. It's IGRO Soil at outlook.com. Maybe I'll make a banner for it.
Outlook.
Outlook.
That? Jesus. That's like AOL.com.
Is it?
I don't know.
Why you gotta go there?
It's such a ubiquitous microbe that it's everywhere on Earth. So everywhere on Earth will have a different ecological niche for it, a different metabolic pathway that it will use, but it will be everywhere, regardless of what you have to feed it.
It's working in the background somewhere, doing something, and then you get to the point where you can smell it. You know, you'll know that smell. You'll know that smell. It smells like a baby diaper, straight up. Somebody told me that the other day, and I was like, I always say porter potty. It smells like a baby diaper.
It's a good one too. You know, especially an old porter potty.
I mean,
I think it smells like a mix between like iron and rust and some cut grass.
Well, it depends on what point you are in that bioreactor, though, too.
That's true.
Because, you know, the minute you open it, you introduce oxygen, things escape, things come in, electrons get jacked, you know, you start changing that whole. I have bottles that don't smell like practically anything, and they're deep red. Mm-hmm. But I know that the clock is ticking for them, right? At some point, you know, they're do they go dormant, Doc? Like, do they just phase out? I've seen them get out-competed by algae. And, you know, that's another thing is the pond. We're not even talking about the water, the water, what it does in water, right?
Right. Yeah. So I've just seen keep it in the dark to make algae. Yeah. So when you see the whole point of excluding oxygen is to exclude the environment for algae to take over. Mm-hmm. So that's something that you can easily sort out just by excluding oxygen. So topping it up. So yeah. So typically you've got a biodrift, as we call it. So that biodrift is generally because of an environment or a food. So where you've got oxygen in there, well, that's a food. Where you've got an environment whereby it's not filled to the top without the crowning meniscus, there's your answer. You can exclude algae, and again, this is the reality of a Winogradsky column is that if you do have a takeover of algae, so you know you've got that oxygen gap, algae get in and they do what algae does, and you've been away for a week and you've got a algae bloom taking over, then somebody made the point, you just put it into the dark, because the algae will not survive without the sunlight. The PNSB switch their metabolic pathway so they can survive without the sunlight. And then the algae die, and then the PNSB consume the algae. So
well, that's a great point, Doc, because that's how I ended up successfully capturing my first culture. I kept getting out-competed by algae, and I thought, okay, well, if algae's eating, you know, this is trial and error, right? This is 2 months in the making. I thought, well, let me put some in the cabinet for a week and kill off the algae. And that, because of my research with cyanobacteria, I recognize that when it's in the dark, it starts to weaken. It doesn't autofluoresce under epifluorescence. So I was able to put those bits together. And that's how finally I gave an opportunity for PNSB to outcompete that culture, because algae and cyanobacteria are going to eat a lot faster and reproduce a lot faster than purple non-sulfur. That is my own work. I mean, I'm sure I'm nailing that. Or maybe I read it somewhere, but I know that just from growing all of them.
It's the same with LAB. LAB are renowned for being prolific because they're greedy bastards. So if there's easily available sugar, then they will consume that, and they'll consume that quicker than PNSB would consume it, because PNSB wouldn't be looking at as its primary electron donor. So it would be looking for the acetates or the malates. So PNSB is a slower eater, if you like. So if you've got LAB in the mix, then they will, Mr. Creosote it. They'll just stuff their phases. And that's where PNSB is a slower fermenter. So if you're bringing bokashi into your system, the method that I would or I do utilize is that I would bring the bokashi into water. Now, because bokashi is going to be prolific with LAB, that pH is going to be lowered. So that's a pH level that the PNSB can handle, but they won't be able to handle it quickly. They'll have to adapt to it, and they'll have to consume. So when you bring bokashi and PNSB together in water, then what you have to be sure is that you have to buffer that so that the PNSB are at their optimal, and then once they're at their optimal, they will overtake the reactor and the LAB will disappear. So you're going to be extracting like a deep red, ruby red coloured liquid from your bokashi, because that slower fermentation using the PNSB is going to be the it's going to be the apex way of converting all of that organic matter and basically do it without any smells, because the volatility of any bokashi is not mitigated as soon as you put it into soil. Because all of your hard work is for now as soon as you put it into soil. So we try to recover all of the energy, and because the ammonia don't off gas, PNSB consume that as well. So it's all in all, it's a better way of fermentation using PNSB, but you're using PNSB in collaboration with LAB. But we have to make sure that the conditions are right so that LAB don't take over.
And then here's the next one, and that's I know I'm on the right path here, Doc. First of all, did you see that biofilm that I put there? I left just a head of oxygen in here, and in this case, that biofilm took over the top, out-competing any type of algae, which was really cool. Yep. That was the first time I'd really seen that dense. I mean, look at this biofilm here. It's just, I pulled that out with the pipette.
It was like a SCOBY.
It looks like a SCOBY. It's a SCOBY of PNSB. And Doc, what does he do? He seed coats with that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, if it's floating, you got to take care, because it might be just lipids. So fats will be will be fats. They act in water as they do. PNSB will colonize that though, because they'll eat anything. But that's the biofilm is where you want to effectively, if you've got that bioreactor and you use it often and you backslope, then eventually what that collection will do is it will coat the inside of the bottle, so you can accumulate the biofilm simply through time.
Wow.
Another point I want to make is that when you this, because here's a question that people have asked: when you add PNSB to your beneficial microorganisms or the EM1 consortiums, right?
Sand brew.
Sand brews, they are going to actually stabilize that. People have this impression that the quicker it swells, the better the culture. The reason it's swelling that fast is because those labs are stressed in their own acid, in the acid that they're making. Now, Purple Non-Sulfur Bacteria is going to go into that consortium, and it's going to start eating the acids, because it's going to say, well, wait a minute, this is out of control, and I need to protect myself, right? It's about protecting itself, and in the effort to protect itself, it starts eating the same acids that the labs are creating, and it's their waste. They're not made to be in a bottle. They're not designed to be in a bioreactor. They're in nature, so their acids don't bother them in nature, right? You got a bunch of people passing gas in a room, you're going to have some pissed off people, right? Outside all day long. So PNSB goes in there and says, all right, I'm going to start eating this. I'm going to start eating this acid. And that the labs understand that we're a little more comfortable. There's no need to go into this hyper reproduction, because the same way a plant or a tree, in my short time of observation, when I saw my mango tree after a cold freeze start trying to fruit, I knew it was going to die. I said, this tree's trying to reproduce so that when it on its way out. And it's no different with labs. It's no different with microbes. They're trying to protect themselves. So your culture will take a little longer to go full max, and it'll also pivot with yeast. Yeast is kicking out CO2. Well, guess what? PNSB eats carbon. It eats CO2 for breakfast, or it's like a green beret. You know, it's a, okay, what's next? And understanding that, and understanding that when you treat these microbes and manage them, they're a lot more intelligent than you can even imagine. And they're reading signals, and this is what they do, right? And I think that when I think it's really important for people to understand that, because when you understand it, you become more free about doing stuff. I used to be very careful what I did, and I used exact measurements of this and that. Rick would be like, well, just put it in there. We're going to find out tomorrow. And that helped me out a lot. And then, of course, this would be, I would have loved finding a video like this. I would have loved finding a video like this. And I agree with Doc when he says, in the next 10 years, with the right purple revolution here, PNSB is going to be a household name where everybody's growing it, everybody's sharing it, because the point that you're only as strong as your neighbor, he mentioned that, but I saw it firsthand with my sister. She has a beautiful butterfly garden in her house. The neighbor sprayed poisons, killed all of her butterflies. So you can be as regenerative as you want to be, but if the next guy's not, then you got a problem.
Yeah. Look, the other thing is that we've got the opportunity to look at farming from a much more personal perspective, in as much as I treat it as a window box to wheat field. So if you're looking at a 5-litre bioreactor sitting on your windowsill, anybody can do that. People with accessibility issues can get involved in farming because they're not having to hump compost from one bay to the next. We're able to mitigate the problems that are associated with the smell of rotting food with PNSB. So we're able to utilize PNSB to actually drastically change the way in which we look at how waste is processed. And if we do that, then we're not looking at waste as waste. We're looking at it as unallocated carbon or resources. So this is where the PNSB, if everybody's aware of it, then there is no IP out there. You can't have a restriction. The network that I am part of, or the collective that I'm part of, the idea is that you're only as resilient as your neighbour. And if I'm able to turn my neighbour not into a consumer but into a collaborator, then that makes me more bioresilient. And at the same time, the biggest problem in a lot of farming is barriers to entry. Well, we need farming methods to be cheap, and there's nothing cheaper than already having the microbes in the soil. You don't need to import anything. We've got a paradigm shift when it comes to organic farming. Again, that was my main interest in moving away from KNF. Was if you're a vegan, KNF screw you. You got to have chickens, you got to have pigs, you got to have a mountain to climb up. Whereas in the UK, we got hedgerows. They haven't been cultivated for thousands of years. That's where I get my IMO from. So you got to look at IMO as not being, some apex collection of the forest floor. You're just looking for decomposers. And
cyclers, yeah.
They
and that's
exist
what all this is.
The best decomposers in the world.
Yeah. It's all about the biology.
And we're not even scratching the surface. That's the crazy thing, right? Is that we're not even scratching the surface. I'm telling you that this thing, it creates what it needs. It makes malic acid, acetic acid. It makes all this. It makes its own sugar like a plant, right? It's like, okay, I need acetic acid today, or maybe I need some vitamin B. Let me photosynthesize, take in some sugar, and I'm going to use that as my energy source to go make what I have to make over here. Oh, if there's no sun, we're in a dark cycle. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and chomp away on this organic matter, whatever it may be, and take what I need to take from that. And here, let's make this. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say you hit on something that we discussed the other night about vitamin B and about biotins and how can we understand what the PNSB can do and can't do, and how can we help them do that. So being in the UK, I utilize a product called Marmite. Now, Marmite is a byproduct of the brewing industry, and it's yeast extract. Now, if you've grown PNSB and you've experimented with PNSB, you've probably experimented by putting a bit of what was the word I was just saying?
Marmite?
Some yeast into your bioreactor. No, if you've ever tried growing PNSB and you've veered off from the fish and eggs and you've added Epsom salts for the color, you might have also added some yeast, because the yeast is going to be the food source again for the PNSB. But
and the vitamin B source.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing. But if you're using like a dry yeast or a lab yeast or a culinary yeast, it's basically the problem is that the PNSB has to break through that shell to access the food effectively. Whereas if you're using an yeast extract, not only is it a wide consortium, but it's also that process has already happened, so it pre-digests. When you introduce the B vitamins into the PNSB bioreactor, again you strengthen their ability to be able to fix nitrogen.
It's available. It's there. So it's like, cool, I'm gonna take this. You know what I mean? That's like making in my household's family tacos with whatever's there. Cool. I'm gonna add this, and that, and I'm gonna eat it. There's energy. Let's go. This is what PNSB does. And then they go do it in the water. They're amphibious, if you will. There's no rules for PNSB.
There's not rules, but there are optimal, and the optimal is dependent on what your output or your successful outcome.
Yes. So let's talk about that real quick. That was part of the mind blowing, thing that's always been for me. So it goes back to the conversation we had the other night. You are what you eat, right? So some people can you drink and take in PNSB? Some people do. But what you can do is you can feed it your inputs. The greater your input, the way I treat compost, the better my input, the better my output. And then that output is what we're eating. So that output is designed and made with the input. And by the way, they're endophytic microbes. The plant is bringing them in. So this PNSB is embodied all this beneficial nutrient that you give it versus giving it your septic system. Right? I mean, you're gonna drink some PNSB, and I'm not saying to drink it, but are you gonna drink something that's been eating plant matter or that's been eating your septic system, right? It's embodied, and then you go feed. Here was the mic drop to me. Then you go feed that PNSB to your freaking eukaryotes, your protists, your rotifers, your what, bro? What? You know what I mean? So now your sharks, you're feeding your sharks just straight up probiotics. You're feeding your piranha the benefits that you hand selected for them to then in the future take up for your body. Bro, get out of here, man. I'm out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Amen. Drop it.
I'm done.
I'm done. That's it.
So
Doc,
you're talking about the Hunger Games.
Go ahead.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry.
We got you.
We got you.
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking about the way in which you can use PNSB to feed on waste, feed on the excreta of the microbes that produce. So like LAB will produce the acetates, the PNSB will eat that. But at some point, the PNSB also have to be food. So they're either taken in by the plant, or what you can do is you can feed it to a higher level. So this is where you're talking about your protozoas. So
Trophic levels, yeah.
when you're remediating soil or looking at soil that is dead, you want to kickstart the soil stomach. So you want to create that digestive system. And the easiest way to do it is with the potato, and you're creating that highly fungal zone. But if you're using like a hay infusion, this is where you are putting chopped hay into water, aerating it for 24 hours, no more than 48. And once you have that population explosion, you're going to put it into your soil. But when you put it into your soil, the protozoa, although they're grazers, they are lazy. So what you need is your food source in there. The perfect food source is the PNSB. So the protocol for large-scale remediation of soil is that you would put your PNSB in, and then you'd put in your protozoa. They would then consume. They've got a ready source of food. They will then consume the PNSB, and they're either going to break that apart and release the nitrogen, and any excess is going to come out in a bioavailable form. So you're just kick-starting, and you're doing exactly the same as feeding the bottom layer of the winograd seed column. You're just kick-starting that process, and once that process starts, that cycling happens all the time.
So you're priming your soil with the PNSB, and then you send your protist T, which we've all learned from Elaine, and you know that protocol he just said with your rice, I mean your grasses, and you know and even so, you know, when there was when Rick one day said, let's do the Mexican sunflower, bro, see what you get out of that, and some of the beans that we have, they're everywhere, you know, it's we're surrounded by it, you know, and it's just understanding how to feed it, how long, because I could tell you right now in the summer here in Florida, I need 26 to 30 hours, and I have a full-on protozoa infusion where I've got all the ciliates in the world, I've got all the sharks or piranha that I need to consume that purple non-sulfur bacteria that I'm priming my soil with, that I grew in this reactor, that I hand selected what I'm going to feed it. And why not throw a little calcium in there? And a matter of fact, why not throw a little iron phosphate in there, knowing that this bacteria is going to create a molecule that's going to bind to that rock and split it and release that phosphate to the tune of dry PNSB. 15% of it, by dry matter, up to 15% of it is phosphorus. So in a world where we're over here mining the earth and looking for phosphorus, this thing is grabbing this bound up phosphorus and splitting it and saying, here you go. It's kind of like Dumb and Dumber, where he's just handing out IOUs everywhere. Here you go, take it. Can't hear. Yeah, not sure if he's saying something. I think we lost you there.
He's
You
hearing
sound.
Doc, try and switch your mic input real quick. Just switch back and forth. Yeah, amazing.
It is amazing. It's been amazing me for 2 years. You know, I mean, I caught it on early from Matt, and I chased it. Mo, build the soil. Calcium has arrived. There's Rick over at the garden. You know what's gonna happen there, right? Doc will jump back in. You know, this is gonna. You know, there's Rick, my mentor, my dude, bro. You know, here we go. Let's play with this stuff now. You know, build the soil's calcium. You know, it's like, let's feed it to the microbes and let's see what happens under the microscope. Let's watch these responses and reactions. You know, this is, you know, Eagle's been there the whole ride with me. My whole journey, Eagle's been there, you know, and we've seen the microscopy. We've done the work, you know, hours and hours of this. So, you know, it honestly is like mind blowing to me that this microbe does. And here we are just kind of, you know, it's this big secret, man. And the secrets, I don't like them, you know, and I disagree with them, and I do everything I can to get that data out there, and again, scratching the surface. I'm not done here, right? There's, you know, there's a whole redox side to this thing. There's a whole thing on how these microbes manage the redox, and that's, you know, that's going to be, you know, hopefully getting Jeremy in here and breaking that down. You know, it's another mentor there to me, man. It's like
yeah. That's the next episode. That one's gonna be, whew. Bring your dictionaries. Jeremy takes us to another level.
Yeah, and it complements what's going on here, because here we're playing with the biology, and I love the biology, and you know, Jeremy, you know, I'm gonna be happy to introduce him. Jeremy's the one that told me, dude, if you want to be the baddest mofo in the room, you're gonna understand redox. And I was like. And then he called me out, and he's like, "You probably blew through Matt's book, bro," and just said, "I don't need that." And yeah, that's exactly what ended up happening. Oh, we got Potato back. Cool, we got a little logo going. That's his logo, man. You'll see that logo. You know, go find Doc. You know, he's out there and he's pushing. And I look at him like, man, you know, this channel needs to explode. You know, his channel needs to explode. So, you know, he's got a YouTube, and it's just kind of like, well, I can't give you more. Here it is. We spend the time making the videos. We spend the time doing this in hopes that, you know, and I learned, right? I always tell everyone, my YouTube channel started so that I can go watch my own video. As much as I hate hearing my own voice, it's how I remember things. If I showed you my desk, look, these are all my notes from the other night. And Jeff is like, Mo, you want me to help you with those notes? I'm like, yeah, I don't know what they mean anymore, dude. You know, that's just it's not how I rock, dude. You know, I get in there and I get hands on. And
that's the name of the game, is getting the information out there, getting all the knowledge out there, putting it open source.
Getting it out there and sharing it, man. It's like, come on, dude. You know,
I love that aspect of it. Like, share it with your neighbor. There's no reason. I mean, I know the hardest thing for all of us is like, how do we feed our families? How do we live in this capitalist environment and do good things, right? But just start giving it away. Start giving it to people and growing it yourself and sharing it. And there will always be people that will not make it. So there will always be people that will be willing to buy it. But people that are willing to learn and grow, share it with them, teach them, and then have them teach somebody else. And that's how we make a change.
And you know, and find someone that wants to grind with you in your area, man. It just makes it so much better. Or even in this digital world we're in. Look, I've become very good friends with everyone here. It's like, you know, we talk away from, you know, we share ideas and we share microbes. It's you know, it's this whole thing, you know. And then again, I go to Rick's, you know, and that's just like an opportunity to grow there and learn from people who've been doing it 30, 40 years. and I don't have that knowledge. So how do I get it? How do I, the flower industry, I wish I can grow like you guys. So what do? I grow vicariously through other people, send inputs, and you give me your feedback and send me some microbes, like let's see what we can do. And have a compost pile, have a small one, so that if you fail your ferment, you dump it in the compost pile, and you'll know you failed that ferment, because just like Doc was saying, we'll smell that thing. Like, we're designed to know, other than PNSB, right? PNSB is the only microbe that is allowed to stink in my world and me say, it's good, it's safe right now, with conviction, right? Because it makes you want to throw it away. And
everyone has a million-year-old tool on their face. You've got that repulsion response. So if it smells like butyric acid,
we lose him again?
Yeah, I think we lost him again.
No.
yeah, he's probably getting some bad signal. Ryan Sullivan's another one, man. Good to see you, bro. She's out there doing big things, man. Congrats on everything you're doing out there, dude. Go check Ryan Sullivan out. He's in Wisconsin. We need people over there growing the way he is and sharing. He's another one. Community.
Yeah.
Marcus farming.
West in North Carolina over here.
Gotta get Ryan on here and the Soil Lounge, bro. Ryan, reach out to me, bro. He always does. But yeah, Doc, I think we lost again. He's probably got some crazy weather going on over there, maybe.
Well, I think we sufficiently blew minds tonight.
This is gonna be take this and digest it and watch the video and like the video and watch the video again. And this is one video that I am gonna download because I'm being told that I should, because they don't want this video to disappear, and I would hope not. I try to keep a clean channel, and every now and then I'll drop a curse word there every now and then, but I don't get kicked off. But yeah, Sacred Soul Solutions is another one out there teaching it, man. A whole different way, everyone in this circle of regenerates that I call are somehow out there trying to push in their community, and I appreciate all of you guys, man. And so I think we can.
If I could say one thing to everybody who's listening,
go, please. We're not on the clock here, man. If everybody's hanging, we're hanging.
Find a community that's near you, or even people that are far away from you from across the globe. Find your people, and better yet, make your people, make your community.
That's
I agree.
Yeah, that's it, and it's not hard to do.
You know how many? It's like a known fact that most people don't even know their neighbor. They haven't even met them, right? Like,
yeah,
nobody is interacting anymore. They have taken us out of that community environment, and it's on purpose, right? Frankly, we're powerful together, and then just like the microbes are more powerful together. It's like it's the same.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Agree. We got Doc is back. Fighting some turbulence.
Sorry about that.
No worries, man. No worries.
We got you now. Inoculate that like button. Please hit the subscribe over on the Soil Guys and over at IGRO Soil. And
Hey, Doc, tell them everybody what IMOB represents to you.
IMOB is the Indigenous Microorganism Bank. So it's a decentralized central bank for soil genetics. So if you save seeds, you understand the importance of seeds saved locally. So we do the same with soil genetics. So collecting IMO, producing PNSB, all the biostimulants, I've got so much that I'm able to give it away. So I'm able to do that with my neighbor. And I have other friends who I've met through farming. So No Diggity Gardens up in Birmingham, again, is a pioneer mode. And we have Love Farm in Oxford. We have a collective over in Finland, over in Ireland. So the idea is that if I'm able to with abundance comes resilience, and with resilience, I can then make sure that I'm covered by my neighbour. Excuse me, not using chemicals. So if I give it away, then that means that I'm going to make my local area far more resilient. So rather than just me as a farmer succeeding, I want all the farmers in my area to succeed. So the IMOB is that, think of it like a seed bank, but for soil genetics. So over the years, I've cultivated and collected from Dartmoor, from Slapton Lee, from marl beds. So all the areas around me, I'm able to generate a bank of microbes that I can train and keep the mother culture. And so that's what an IMOB is. It's part of the social mycelium.
Social mycelium. I love that.
Build that food bank, build that microbank. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing over here. Trying. Get microbes from everyone I get. They get extended out. I don't miss it. That's like, a new soil sample. It's like a double dip. It's like new package in the mail.
So I don't know if you can see there's a presentation up there.
Oh, cool. So let's run it. Remove that. There we go.
There we go. So I worked with a collective from Finland, and a few years ago we started on projects for bioremediation of the heavily mined forest areas in Finland. So this is where the PNSB and the black pearl is used for heavy metal remediation, but also part of that project was a project to create a microforest in a mental health hospital, so that when people are recovering, they're able to breathe in the microbes and change their physiology and be healed with the forest. So the idea that we're farming alone, that's the idea. Is it's an illusion. So what we're trying to do is change from consumers, and by doing that, we have like a shared risk amongst all of us. The currency is IMO2 because it's shelf stable for many years. You can utilize that in a JMS mix, if you like. So the Purple Non-Sulfur Bacteria. So the bank effectively is audited. It's like a self-audit. So if your ferments and if your stimulants all pass the correct tests, olfactory tests, the visual tests, then you've effectively got currency for the bank. And the idea is that you use ethical handshake. So we call it social folia. So if I'm able to offer to a neighbor,
social folia.
Yeah, folia spray your neighbors. That sounds way cooler.
Yeah.
Hey, something's wrong with you. Just spray them.
But it's the don't preach, inoculate. So if I brew too much, would you want to give it a try? There's no charge, but when they see that result, then they come back and ask, well, how? And that's where you then establish this local bank so that those who can't make it have a resource. So if they have a major crash, so we've got this extreme drought, well, this is where we need the biology to help with the soil. So the idea is that you're actually collecting the local biology, you're making sure that it passes the right criteria, that forms a currency. In the UK, we have the problem, unlike Korea, where the season is long and warm pretty much all year round. Here we have the break where the biology slows down, but then we just bring the biology indoors and we create a winter bridge so that we're keeping that biology alive. They're constantly adapting and learning, and then come the spring, we're able to get our soil lively quicker. Part of the social mycelium is that I work with hemp farms. We create white label products. We reduce risk by making sure that everyone has access to biology. And basically, it's an insurance. So where you would swap seeds to preserve the genetics of the plant. The social mycelium preserves the genetics of the soil. So that's basically what we do.
Everything's connected.
Absolutely. Apart we shall perish. Together we ferment.
Amen.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's awesome, man. That's all the presentation, Doc.
Yeah,
There you go.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for being
And,
here.
and again, a lot of this is this available on your Patreon, right? Most of this is available on your Patreon.
Well, to be honest, I haven't published everything, but I'm going to be uploading everything. And
Sure,
everything's
it's
on.
time.
Yeah.
You got farms to deal with, man. I get it. Believe me, I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, everything that I talk about and all of the presentations and all of the data is going to be up on the Patreon, simply because it's a place to put it until I build a website. But to be honest, what I'm going to be doing is producing the final codex, if you like, for my system, and then you can interrogate that as if you would interrogate yourself. So we'll sort something out so that you're able to actually interrogate that all the files, just ask questions.
Wow.
And I've been there, Doc, and I would suggest something, and that would be to put one of those buy me a coffee buttons, man, because someone like myself understands the work and appreciates the work, and I'd be able to buy you a coffee, bro. There's Sats, even better. I don't even know if you go there, but that's a whole another conversation.
Well, talking about decentralized and secure, so I'm just making assumptions here.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that you can, I can put a price on it if you want, but the problem is, and then I've got to work because I've got to send it to you. So, I don't have time for that. And I'd rather you have the knowledge to either go and collect it yourself. And if not, then somebody I know. So if you're in the UK and you want to get a culture of PNSB, you're more than welcome to. Plenty available. But I personally don't sell it. But as part of the social mycelium, we have native biota. And that is where we would be raising funds effectively for the community. So you're able to buy it through native biota. I'll put some links up. But I would locally I give it away. Nationally, I'm trying to create more and more hubs or nodes, if you like. So we've got one in Birmingham, one in Oxford, one in Galway, one over in Finland, one in France. So as soon as you start a node in the social mycelium, then you can avoid the shipping costs as well.
Yeah,
within a certain
big deal.
radius.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah. Agreed all the way, man. Because I've been sending stuff out, and it's gonna get worse. So that's big. Well, I'll tell you what, we're here, man. We hit this 2-hour mark, and we'll regroup. We could do this all day long, and pull the next stage of this. But Doc, brother, I know it's like 3 o'clock in the morning your time, bro.
2 o'clock is not too bad.
Yeah.
So
it's not too bad. He said it to me. I'm on Florida time. Don't worry about me.
I mean, the other night we were up till 4 his time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I my time's my own, thankfully. So I'm able to do what I want. I'm an adult. So,
Saving the world takes time.
Exactly.
Inoculating the world with knowledge. Here where we're at, it's great that you're sharing PNSB. We're just trying to share the knowledge because the average person here doesn't know what it's pretty bad over here. People don't know what microbes
10 out
are.
of 10 people I encounter will not know what that is.
That's a lot.
In my community, nobody.
What forced me to kind of put everything online or start to put everything online was that myself and Nev from Native Biota, we were not preaching, we were teaching at a festival of organic growers, and the lack of knowledge, the reliance purely on the random rotting of compost didn't really bode well. So we were like, right, okay, well, we need to fast track this. And so that's why we're just throwing this information out there. And, if people want to ask questions, then, myself and Nev are there to answer those questions. Because we need to rapidly change the way farming is done. And the only way you're going to do that is by doing it on a large scale. So PNSB is just one of the solutions. And again, with the One Potato Revolution, it's about the valorization of waste. And by that, I mean food waste, but also in doing so, using metabolic supremacy over random rotting. You know, we can be so much cleverer because we know so much more about these microbes. So let's utilize them and let's grow them on such scale that there's no reason for anybody to buy, urea, because, you know, PNSB will produce it. You know, it will consume it and it will turn it into a plant available food. So yeah, lots to be done, but you know, the more people are doing it, the easier it's going to be.
It's got to, through knowledge, is my direction. You know, I'm like, okay, well, I had to learn it, right? I went 45 years before I knew that there was bugs in the soil. You know, I went 45 years before I knew worms ate things. You know, like, there was a major disconnect there. Yeah, Jeff, you're muted, and I think I'm glad you are. Anyway.
You're glad I am.
I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you. We'll catch up. We'll maybe, if you're up for it, we'll roll another one out. You know, we'll just kind of hang out in the lounge, man. And you're always in the feed. You're always you're always in the feeds. Let's bring you to the stage and hang. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Well,
awesome. if you're interested in learning all of the different ways in which I've adapted KNF for the Western biome and for veganic, then that's where I'm going to be pushing it all online. So any questions can come through either the Instagram or through the Patreon. But look out, there'll be a big dump of lots more files in the coming weeks, simply because my hard drive's filling up.
I heard that, man. Go get it. Well, everybody, I'm thankful everybody was here. You know, again, throw the little like. Let's get this information out there. I'm going to download this video. I'm not going to even wait, so that in the event that it just gets zapped, then because of the eclipse or something, I don't know. We already know. But appreciate everybody coming. Doc, again, man, I can't say it enough, bro. You know, it's people like you that just keep me pushing the envelope and saving me years of research that I can now take this information and run my direction with it, and then come back around and say, look at this, right? And here it is on the scope. You know, I took that protocol and take a look at what happened, you know, and that's, I think for me, it's a big, you know, the scope. And, you know, I always have to clarify, the scope is not my end all be all. The scope are an extension of knowledge and visuals of where I'm heading with what I'm doing. And trust me, I've made some awful things.
With biology, you can't guess; you got to verify. So that's where the microscope should be just another tool in a farmer's toolbox. But at the same time, we all can recognise the smell of death. So you know, never put death on life. So long as you're able to avoid biodrift, then to be honest, it's just digestion. That's all we're doing, and it's just where you're interacting with the microbe and what stage of that digestion. And yeah, it's easy. This ain't Hogwarts, you know. There's no spells. It's just practice and you know, verification, and use your eyes, use your nose, color. You know, everyone knows it. They just got to understand it, and understanding is just coming through practice.
Got it.
Thanks so much for being
here. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna wrap it up, and I hope you can take from this and reach out again to my email. You know, and we'll get some stuff out there. And I'd rather see people growing their own, and then maybe, you know, become a swap party there of microbes. So I appreciate everyone. Jeff, Eagle, as always.
Thanks, Mo.
Yeah, we're out of here,
Thanks, brothers.
Thanks everyone. Doc, go ahead and hold back for a second.